Alex Gluz here. I'm the host of Revenue Engine podcast, where I talk with top leaders in business, marketing, sales, tech, SaaS, and more. We have a great guest for you today. This episode is brought to you by TA Monroe Digital. At TA Monroe, we build world-class revenue engines for B2B SaaS and tech companies. We have a great guest for you today. Same name. Hey, Alex, nice to have you here.
Hey man, Alex, glad to be here. Excited to listen in on the show for a while, so I'm actually pretty stoked to have a good chat with you today.
Likewise. So can you do a brief intro of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, so name's Alex Atkins. I work at Sturdy.ai. I'm the VP of Growth and Ops. I've been with the team for about 4 years now. I live here in Austin, Texas, sunny Austin, Texas. And we're here with my wife and my 3 dogs at home. So one of those work from home opportunities. But yeah, I've been with Sturdy for a while and quite a bit has evolved in that time. So happy to chat about it.
Let's dive in. So
let's
you worked across acquisition, retention, RevOps, analytics. When did you realize they were all the same problems wearing different hats?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's pretty immediate. They literally are the exact same, and it's messy in every single department. And I do think that when you look at acquisition, retention, RevOps, anything from sort of the go-to-market side and analytics as well, there's also a huge gap in understanding what's going on in real time. And if you are reactive in all those different departments, all those different disciplines and focuses, you are going to lose every time. So I think it all started with like the moment I saw churn, like a churn reason field in a CRM. It goes way back. But I think somebody had typed like product gap or something like that in a CRM field. And I knew that the specific account we were referring to, and it had been, it had been in those conversations that product gap had come up, but there was not like the single product gap. There was 6 months of small signals that nobody really connected the dots on. There was a competitive mention in there. It definitely was like a stalled onboarding, slow responses, from CS team and AEs, which obviously eroded confidence, and product gap was like the last straw. But it was kind of like last touch attribution, right? So these things are they translate across all different departments. But that's what it got marked as. And that's why I was like, well, that's not really the case. That's just one of the many cases, right? It's one of those situations in which no one signal caused that churn. I started really as the RevOps is a lack of this data and qualitative data, going back to the qualitative comment I made earlier, the why behind the what. And then the acquisition side is just kind of using some intent signals, right? Which we'll talk about intent signals if we want, but then of course the conversion is made, and when it comes to retention, there's so little information happening in real time that provides teams with the information and objectivity and qualitative why things are happening to be able to act proactively. And so that's like what gave me all this, I guess, curiosity and interest in what Sturdy does, right? And so, every function, acquisition, retention, RevOps, analytics, it's working with a different slice of the same data reality. Sales sees what's promised, CS sees what was delivered, product sees what was built, finance, sees what was renewed, but none of them have a full picture. And I think that's the thing, is they all have different slices of that reality. And that is a huge problem. It's not like a function problem, it's an intelligence. It's a timing problem. And without that intelligence and timing, especially in today's age, you're going to be falling behind. So that kind of brings us up to one of the reasons why I was working at Sturdy and found what Sturdy was building to be so exciting and unique, at least at the time, and still is, I think. So,
yeah, definitely. So, maybe you can tell to our listeners what Sturdy does exactly, because to get more familiar.
I'm being super cryptic about it, and I do want to talk more about the data, because I think that's one big piece around the report that we published, right? Data being, I think, one of the largest moats, especially in the AI world these days. There's so much that could be recreated with AI, but having a unique data set, first-party data set, I think does set someone apart. And I think Sturdy's unique data set, which we can talk about a little bit in a moment, is one of those very cool things that I get to tap into and play with and understand, and not only understand, but sort of provide answers to folks who've had these questions forever and just wanted some objective data to be able to support those beliefs, and we were able to provide that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a moment. But what we do is we basically adjust every single conversation between your customer and your business. And if you think about that, B2B SaaS, B2B services, and any other sort of large B2B enterprise, that's thousands, millions of conversations happening back and forth each month between emails, chats, tickets, video calls, whatever it might be, those transcripts. That's millions and millions and millions of words, billions of words, many millions of conversations. And humans are not built to read every single word, read and understand every single phrase, email, ticket, transcript. It's just not what we were built for. But what we were able to train was able to glean all those insights, extract them semantically, and then be able to send them proactively to the people that need to know now so that you can detect risk and you can, understand opportunities proactively. It's the most basic way I can describe it, but the outcomes are pretty substantial. You're able to more or less understand and predict customer risks long before they happen, predict upsell opportunities, expansion opportunities without people explicitly saying that they want to do that. You're able to also understand on the front end before a deal is made within the opportunity object if somebody's language is inferring that they're ready to close, not ready to close, if there's something they need to be able to close. So now you have that sort of intelligence on both ends, on net new prospects as well as existing customers. And that's what Sturdy does in a nutshell. And then, of course, without getting too much more in depth, then creates automations to ensure that you're able to go take those actions. And it's pretty cool stuff. But those conversations that I was talking about, that kind of leads into like the report, right? So we had about 47 million conversations that we were analyzing. And that's a massive data set. And this is all unstructured data, right? This is not information that fits neatly onto a grid or onto an Excel sheet, which makes it traditionally impossible to glean insights from. And again, no one human is going to read through 47 million conversations. But the models that we've been working on and training over the last 6 years are quite good at picking up specific signals, is what we call them. And I want to get into what those signals are. But I think the one note I'll make now, the one little sort of breadcrumb I'll drop is no one signal is incredibly tied to or correlated with churn. It actually takes multiple signals. And that's kind of what we're going to be getting into, I think, a little bit here. But we're going to be talking about how when there's combinations of specific signals firing at a specific time, that is actually a huge predictor of churn.
So what does it actually look like to analyze 47 million conversations? What do you see that the CRM or health score will never show you?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think just first and foremost, the scale of 47 million, gives you a pattern of clarity that you simply never get with a health score or CRM field. Like, it's just straight up. I think a CRM, it tells you what someone logged, which, let's stop right there. That's what someone's opinion, human being, logged into a CRM. So that's very, very different. I think a health score tells you what the system may have inferred from a specific product usage. But again, that's just like one signal. And I do think health scores can be useful. I want to be clear. I don't think health scores are completely obsolete. They can be useful, but they also tell you a what. That goes back to the what's happening. Oh, they've hit the red. Why? Well, then you have to start digging. Why are they in the red? And that's where 47 million conversations come in handy, right? Because 47 million conversations inbound and outbound, right? Across email, Slack, calls, everything I was talking to you about it before, with more than 100 million signals extracted from those conversations. It's that scale that you start to get the contextual why behind what is happening. And so what you see at scale is like, churn almost never caused by one specific thing. And that's exactly what I was getting at. It's a combination, and it's a combination of signals that matter most, and they're not obvious necessarily, right? And it's kind of counterintuitive, finding that gets the most reactions. Like, this is interesting that we found that negative sentiment does not meaningfully predict churn in B2B. Which is kind of funny. A frustrated signal when fired in Sturdy, or an unhappy signal, negative sentiment related signal firing in Sturdy, does not predict churn. However, when paired with some other signals, it sure can. But by itself, negative sentiment is not a meaningful predictor of churn for B2B SaaS. You can have unhappy customers who stick around for years, It's just what it is because the cost got higher or whatever it might be. And you can have a super polite, happy, positive sentiment customer quietly making an exit plan because nobody caught the underutilization signal or some other sort of signals that were sort of under the surface, right? So yes, that is what you can extract with 47 million conversations. I'd say that some of the biggest findings that we were publishing in this report were a few different combinations that were incredibly predictive of churn. And this goes into some of those signals that I was mentioning before, right? So we can always tell if there's some sort of request for a contract. And it doesn't have to be the exact words. We're not doing word matching. We're doing semantic understanding of somebody asking for a contract in many different ways, right? They don't have to say, can I have contract, right? So if somebody requests a contract, plus there was an executive change in the business within the last 30 days, that is an incredibly high predictor of churn. Almost 8 out of 10 businesses will churn if they've had that champion leave the business and they've requested a contract within 30 days. And that's all something that Sturdy would pick up, by the way. 2 signals that we have are executive change and contract request. So again, it's easy to set up an automation within Sturdy saying, hey, if executive change occurs within 30 days of a contract request and the customer is over 10 million ARR, because that's the kind of systems you hook up with your CRM when you match it with all the unstructured data. So you get the conversation data and you get the CRM data. That's where you get the ARR from. That's where you get the East Coast, East Coast 10 million ARR plus, and you have these 2 signals fire. Send me a Slack immediately, right? These are things we need to get ahead of. And then generate an email outbound to the stakeholder so we can start the conversation in right now, because that means they are churning pretty much, right? So that's something we found with 47 million conversations. I think another interesting one was a couple signals that we matched up called overpromise is one of our signals. And overpromise is when a sales or marketing individual has promised specific, products and or use cases and or abilities that product or service does not actually support. And this happens actually quite a bit. More sales is like, it's definitely coming soon. In fact, it will probably be rolled out by the time it's beta, but it'll be rolled out by the time you sign up. We're so excited for you to see this. And they've just sold you on some sort of service or product that doesn't exist. So overpromise is a massive signal. And that will always come up in conversations after the fact, right? So it's like, hey, you sold me this does not exist. Yes, that's one way of saying it in an email or saying it on a call. But no matter how you say it, overpromise is going to fire. And when overpromise fires and the customer is in the onboarding stage, that is a massive predictor of churn as well. It's really, as you probably know all too well, onboarding is a very tough stage. It's finicky. You're trying to gain a ton of trust because you've just handed off from sales to another individual on the CS or AE team. And this person that you just bought in, a massive contract with, they gave you all the thumbs up. They were so cool. But now they're handing you over to somebody new you've never met before, and they're supposed to, get you onboarded and everything's going to work just as it was promised. But when it's not what it was promised and you're in that first stage of onboarding, which again, you can detect with Sturdy because again, that comes in from a CRM field, that leads to churn. So these are just 2 examples, but there's so many different combinations that when paired together, you're in the danger zone. And you know why you're in the danger zone. You know why you're in the red. And that's how you start to get ahead of it, right? When you're able to predict those things. So just a couple of recipes, I guess you can call them. But yeah, health score misses this entirely because health scores don't read the back and forth. They don't know what someone has asked for. They don't know the copy of the contract. They don't know the overpromise. They don't know what's actually going on. And if you don't know the why behind the what, then you really don't know anything.
You mentioned the product team makes a small change, nobody communicates it, and suddenly CS is managing a renewal that they were not even prepared for. How often does that pattern show up in your data?
Oh, constantly. Yeah, I'd say constantly. Yeah, it shows up in the data, but it's what we call, a couple other signals like product gap signal, product confusion signal. And those when paired with other things are actually really, really powerful. But we call product gap signal. It's like a product is the single largest source of churn, I believe, in our business. And that's what our data shows. Around 28% of the most heavy hitting cancellation signals were product related, which is incredibly, nobody would have I would have never thought that. People just stick it on CS teams and CX teams and say, hey, if they're churning, this is your problem. But it's 75+% of the time, it is not their problem. And they've been saying this forever, but nobody really had that data to prove it. But the word gap, I think, undersells what's really happening. I think, when it comes to product gaps, a lot of this isn't even like a true product gap. It's like a communication gap that becomes a trust gap. I think just in the basic sense. And like an account is using a workflow that depends on a specific behavior. Product ships that change, right? Nobody loops in CS. Nobody ever loops in CS. So the customer hits friction. They file a ticket, gets a fix that's like 3 weeks out or whatever. And in the meantime, starts asking whether this is the right vendor, right, for them. Because they're clearly not being prioritized, right? The product team has made a reasonable decision. CS is managing fallout from a decision that they weren't even part of, and didn't even see coming. And leadership sees the churn reason logged as product and thinks it's an R&D issue, but it's not. It's a shared intelligence problem, right? So I come back to this a lot, and this is one thing that Sturdy does very well, is like product, CS, leadership, everyone's operating on traditionally different timelines with different information, with no single source of truth, which I think some CDPs can provide. But I think in that way, Sturdy is kind of like a customer data platform, right? But with Sturdy, by the time the signals consolidate into a coherent risk picture, the account traditionally has already made a move to leave. But with Sturdy, you identify it in seconds. Everybody has the exact same view of what's happening objectively, and then they can all move forward together in one swift motion. It's an interesting thought that not just like being able to highlight these specific signals, identify which team they belong to, but provide this actual 360 view that everybody can see as a source of truth, because it's the actual voice of your customer. It is no opinions included. It is no thoughts from the inside team. It's literally what your customers are telling you. It's the most actionable, truthful, objective, and qualitative information, because you always know the why. You know what's going on. So that's something we've seen with the whole product side, and product just being a massive contributor to churn. I think, and I have to remember off the top of my head, was like product was number one. And I think CS, CX, related fumbles within signals were number two, and then marketing and sales overpromising may have been number three. But when you really look at the breakdown of all these different signals, it is incredible to see how much revolve around product. Specifically product gaps, product gaps, bug reports, product confusion matched with, overpromising signals, and then response lag. I mean, when you start to get into these combos, then you start to see like churn goes from 24% to 56% to 97% when you start to hit like three of these different signals at one time. So that's when you're in deep trouble.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I had great conversation, and it's one of the things standing out. Some companies treat internal communication like it's optional, like it's something you do whenever it's time. But in SaaS business, the product is the promise, right? And every change to the product is renegotiation of that promise with the customer. And most of the time, nobody sends the memo. So I've been hearing a lot of what's happening in industry. Teams pivot their positioning, new message, new category framing, new angle, and they don't update the ads. So demand gen is still running the old story. Leads arrive expecting something different from what the product
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, 100%. That is so true.
And sales is getting frustrated because the leads fell off, but the leads aren't off. The message just stopped being true. The breakdown is always the same. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand did. And then the customer finds out first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so messed up. That's exactly how it works when the customer's the one telling you what's happening. You didn't even know it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good on the business, to be honest. No, it definitely doesn't. So I completely concur.
But what about NPS? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fearful of making a lot of enemies here, but of course I am biased, and this is an opinion. Sturdy doesn't have opinions, but I do. I don't see a ton of value behind NPS. Or CSAT, or health scores in general. And I can tell you all about that. We could have another sit down, you and me, for an hour to talk about it. I think, just to back up, I think the most dangerous finding in our report, and I do say dangerous because I think it upends a lot of investment decisions, is that sentiment is very weak leading indicator, right? So we talked about that. Accounts that express negative sentiment do not churn at a meaningfully higher rate at all, right? Than other accounts that express even positive sentiment. So that's not a typo. That's just how it goes. Our hypothesis is that teams actually respond to negative sentiment reasonably well. If somebody says they're upset, we'll get back to them. They escalate, they have a conversation, they address the stated concern, right? What we do not do well at is responding to signals that don't trigger an alarm. The ones that come, that sort of like fly under the radar, right? And that's kind of what we were talking about because they don't actually sound urgent, right? The signal that we're actually predicting churn are the ones that are prolonged silence. No communication at all, no underutilization. We need to get back to, we need to get back in our system, or an executive change where there's a new stakeholder and somebody's just left and they're asking for a new contract, right? Or competitors mentioned. These are the things that are buried in call transcripts. They're buried in emails. Like you just won't see them. You won't notice them. And these aren't going to be the kind of things that trigger sentiment. They don't generate a red health score, right? So you can kind of see where I'm getting at this. But in combination among the most reliable predictors of churn, we see in our data, right? Then you start to see things start to move and they aren't just necessarily green, yellow, red. And here's why it's so easy to miss is that they accumulate across channels. As we were talking about this, the silence is just in an email, the underutilization comment, and maybe in a ticket. Executive change is coming through in a CRM field that nobody else is looking at except for that one specific team. Nobody's reading across all these different channels simultaneously. That's the real gap. And you are never getting that in an NPS score.
Right.
So yeah, but we can keep talking about NPS as long as you want. I will also say the biggest issue with NPS for me is going back to the why. Okay, so-and-so's in the red because they've triggered specific, little triggers in the model that now mean they're at a 9 out of 10, they're in the red. And that was maybe some sort of lack of product usage, let's say. Or they've been silent for the last month and they haven't been responding to emails. These are antiquated, antediluvian methods, I think, of measuring health within a customer because they are using very basic usage, usage metrics. And my whole thing is, why would you use that if you could use every single conversation between you and your customers analyzed so that you have the why and know exactly what's happening and why it's happening, not just that it's red. If I got a red health score, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to go to the CSM. I'm probably going to go to the AE. I'm probably going to go to anybody who works on this account, try to understand why it's in the red. What's happened? Who talked to who? And what did they say? And that's going to take a few people in a room, probably a couple hours to come up with a good reason that is probably overwhelmingly opinionated. Or you just find that out in 2 seconds and sturdy, completely objective response that tells you exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and what the next best steps are to retain the customer. Better than NPS, in my opinion.
And I can testify for us too, the change of decision maker is one of the main reasons.
Interesting, right?
It's a naturally, because I think that if you understand the sales cycle, with every new person, the sales cycle begins again, right? And you have to kind of rely on that. But I think what's now, with the data part, it's clear, really, right? So you have clarity on the signals and how it all works together, but you also draw a line between dashboards and action. What is the actual gap between seeing the signal and doing something about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I will say that there's definitely a lot of dashboards out there these days. And I've been talking a lot about dialogue over dashboards. And I want to make sure I answer the question because I'll probably go off on some rant. You gotta bring me back when I start going off on some rants. But I think the gap is ownership and speed, right? That's just the easiest answer, right? It sounds simple, but it's where almost like every organization breaks down. You can have a dashboard that surfaces every signal. That's easy. That was where we started our product. XYZ signal is fired 12 times over this course of time. So like that's your dashboard, right? But I think the big thing is if you have a dashboard that services every signal we've ever identified, it won't save a single account if nobody knows what whose job it is to act and how to act, right? And if nobody acts within the specific window, then what's the point of knowing if you're not going to act, right? So I think action is a massive piece of what we built into our platform, right? And we see this in the data, like in a very specific way. The signals are there, they're visible, but the response is inconsistent, it's delayed, it's routed to the wrong function. So I think what separates the teams that outperform on retention is that they've standardized responses to every specific single signal combination, if that makes sense. And they do that through Sturdy. Not to like keep pushing Sturdy, but that's something you have to do. So not every signal, you won't escalate everything. But when a contract request appears, like we were talking about a second ago, or somebody leaves, like the executive change leaves, as you were saying, there's like a defined specific playbook with a specific owner and an executive layer. There has to be an escalation within hours, seconds, not days. And that's the difference. So dashboards surface like information up and to the right. But why? They don't tell you why. Standard operating responses are what turn information into outcomes. Automations, agents, and without the layer, like without those things, like you're just watching. Churn can happen in real time. That's even just with better visibility. You're still just watching it. So I don't know. That's my take on that.
Yeah, and again, it's an interesting one. So what is the process to have activation once the signal is received? So it needs to be standardized, but not only that,
sure.
It needs to be, somebody needs to be accountable for that, and multiple people need to be accountable. Also, education is very important to all the different levels, right? Like people do need to know, it's not just pushing the buttons, but what it means, what could be done, and how it could be.
That's a solid point.
How it could
be escalated. That is a solid point.
Because let's say you have a CS manager and maybe they newer or more junior, and it comes to them, the signal, like, do they exactly know how to proceed without just saying, yes, I get it, okay, I got it, blah, blah, blah. I'll send a few emails. But, that's probably the standard response. Hey, let's set up a meeting, or that might not be enough. Just checking in, right? How's just everything checking going? In. Right.
Nothing gives me a bigger headache than just checking in. I think you're absolutely right. And let's be honest, a lot of the time, the most junior folks are the ones on the front lines that are interacting and engaging with these customers. So to your point, there's been massive educational opportunity here. And I think when you are able to standardize this, so let's just use an example. I've set up an automation that says, hey, if executive change and contract requests occur in the next 30 days, please send me a Slack. For any company, and I have like a ton of accounts. So let's say for any company over 5 million ARR on the East Coast. So let's just say I do it. Something simple like that. I get a Slack message. Great, it's come in. I now know that this is the case. I don't have to go searching for it. It finds me. But I've also set up an automation in Sturdy that says, if this is the case, draft this email, and draft this email based on the best responses that we've seen in the past. So I told you about 47 million conversations. Sturdy's not only finding these things for signals, Sturdy's also identifying opportunities to understand which messages from us to our customers have resonated the most. And in doing so, then coaches your team on what response to send or what message to send that's going to yield the best results based on 47 million conversations in the past. Thus, it is coaching your team to behave as great as your top 1% of your reps, which is an incredible learning opportunity. So again, it is not a generic just checking in. It is okay, this message has yielded the most positive sentiment and outcomes from us in the past. This is how we structure it. This is how we word it. And this is why. That is a great learning opportunity. It's a great coaching opportunity. It ensures you are sending the best possible message.
If retention is really an intelligent and timing problem, where should growth leaders be putting their budgets right now?
That's a leading question. I love it. In retention. No, I mean, we've seen acquisitions slowing a little bit on a lot of fronts. So I don't mean to generalize, but I'd say retention is a great spot for it. I'll say the answer. Honest answer is this. Whatever closes the gap between like when risk appears and when a human can act on it is probably the best way to put it, right? Like right now, most of that budget is going to systems that like produce reports in a lot of companies, like CRMs, health scores, NPS. BI dashboards, your Tableaus and your Lookers. And reports are useful, as I mentioned, but they just tell you the what, and they tell you someone's going up to the right. It doesn't show you, I guess it will show you like last quarter's churn patterns. It doesn't show you or help you with the accounts that actually are about to leave this upcoming quarter, And that's only something I can do with Sturdy. Like, what accounts are potentially at risk for this upcoming quarter and why? So like the shift I'd make is towards like real-time account intelligence, not another layer of aggregation, not another freaking CRM or CSP, which is just a CRM in my opinion. I'm really hating on a lot of things. I'm making a lot of enemies today. This is just my opinion. But in genuine language, this is just my opinion. In genuine language, signal detection across like channels, where your accounts are already communicating with you on all those different unstructured channels I was mentioning before, right? Critically pair that with intelligence, standardized, and responses. Who acts, when, how, based on, what's worked before, as I was just talking to you about, that is where you should be allocating budget. If you can find some sort of account, revenue, customer intelligence that not only, proactively predicts risks and opportunities, but then acts on them for you, in some cases autonomously, that's where I peak. That's where I put my budget. Absolutely. Especially, in my world, or in a world where you are like a startup, with VC, and, support, and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of numbers you got to hit, right? I'd be allocating my budget towards the things that are actually going to have some serious ROI in a very short period of time. So, I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, it does. And the interesting thing is the timing part of this, right? The timing is the things most budget decisions ignore completely, because companies think on how much to spend and where to spend it for a certain amount of time, but not when. And the reality is that a dollar spent reaching the right buyer at the right moment in their decision process is worth $5-10 more spent reaching the same buyer at the wrong moment, right? So we had clients cut spend by 20%, and that improved qualified pipeline because we got more precise about when campaigns were running, which segments were in active buying cycles, and which channels were the most effective at each stage. So it's not always the spending more, it's about spending when it actually matters to the right people.
Exactly. And I think that's some funny intelligence, kind of like, and that's more of the intelligence that I used to work on the marketing and growth side, right? So it's funny because I lived in that world for so long, and I could not agree more. When you're able to actually allocate dollars towards the things that matter when they matter versus just spraying and praying, oof, the reports look so much better. those leadership calls go a lot better when you're improving LTV to CAC, and you're able to prove out where you're making the best decisions based on some sort of intelligence, not just guessing. So I totally get
it. So to go back to even more to your growth marketing performance mindset. Yeah. So one thing I've been thinking about a lot is the role of paid media in the expansion motion. So when we talk about retargeting, we're talking about website visitors, demo no-shows, people who bounced off pricing page. That's the pool, but your existing customers are sitting right there. You already have the relationship. You already know what they bought. And if you have signal shown who's getting real value and who's starting to slip, but that's the most precise paid audience you ever built. We're starting seeing clients use exactly this account level behavioral signals to trigger paid touch points at the right moments. And the conversion rates look completely different. So my question is, when the intelligence is there and the account is ready to expand or starting to drift, how should growth teams be thinking about activating that?
Wow. That's a great question. That's where I guess the conversation gets super interesting for me personally, because I think the precision you're describing is exactly what most paid media programs are missing, or not maybe most, but a lot that I've seen in the past. And the data to build it is just sitting in the systems. You already have it, right? It's just waiting for you. So I think the traditional retargeting pool is like a blunt instrument in a lot of ways. And of course, I've used this hands-on for my entire career. Website visitors, as you're saying, demo no-shows, pricing, page bounces, all those things. Those are cold audiences with unknown intent a lot of the times, but your existing customer base is the opposite, to your point. They know what they bought and they're using it, and they've told you and your team if there's anything that they like about it, if they have the right intelligence layer, whether they're getting value out of it or they're starting to drift, to your point. I think the accounts that are getting value and hitting expansion triggers in their conversations, increasing usage, language and questions about additional seats, or features, like these are sort of like interesting sort of expansion triggers, asking about roadmap. I think that's your highest intent paid audience for sure. You're not guessing. You're straight up activating on a signal that it's a known signal. And the accounts that are showing early drift signals, like underutilization in a lot of cases, slow engagement, like as I was saying, like response lag and such, like those need a different kind of touch, right? So paid media though, I can still play, I think, a role in sort of making sure though that your brand stays top of mind at all times with CS, while the CS team is working on the relationship. I think one interesting thing too is like, as a marketer, and I use Sturdy for this as a use case, like I have gone in multiple times and been, hey, Sturdy, which of our top 10 customers are most excited about the product, have been having a great time, and would give us a glowing case study and why. And back in the day when I used to work at like larger companies, I'd be going to the CS team, maybe the CS director, CS manager. I'd be going to AEs, be like, hey, like, which of your customers is pumped about working with us? What stories can we tell? I remember sitting in boardrooms with multiple people, 5, 10 people, trying to figure out what customers are happy with us and why, so we can get a good story. Because the thing about like case studies is they typically have to be a little bit more quantitative. We grew by 20% using XYZ, or we retained 30% more customers using this ABC company. Like they have to be quant in a lot of ways. Otherwise, they don't really tell much of a story. Whereas like your testimonials can be like, I love using Sturdy, but testimonials, they're one-liners, they're fun to include. But when you can go and ask something like Sturdy, send me my top 10 customers that love us and why they love us, and you get all that in 10 seconds, and then you can do the outbound within another 20 seconds to those customers, you're generating case studies on demand, on autopilot, by yourself within a minute, versus it used to take me hours in multiple meetings to be able to do these things. So that's an example.